Hey guys, this is Red and Blue, and today I wanted to do a wrap up of the games in the Champions League. I wanted to talk about Bodo Glimt beating Inter Milan, tremendous performance. Juventus really having a horrible time against Galatasaray, losing 5-2. But ultimately, the biggest event that happened across those games has really nothing to do with football, and it's something that shouldn't be seen in football. And it's of course like the racist controversy surrounding the Benfica versus Real Madrid game. So let's talk about this calmly. A few days after, I'll bring you up to date on what we saw, what supposedly happened, what different people are saying, and yeah, let's just purge the topic and go through it. Before we get into it, though, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. It really massively helps, and it's super appreciated. Doesn't cost you anything. The button is right below, so go for it and subscribe right now. We get into it. So what happened? Real Madrid was playing Benfica in Benfica for the away leg of their playoff round in the Champions League, after having had that stunning defeat in the last game of the group stage, with the last ditch goal from the Benfica goalkeeper at the 98th minute. So really at the end of the game. And so they're facing off again. Real Madrid goes back to Benfica. A tight game, a tense game. Both teams having a few opportunities. Real Madrid, I think, on balance, dominating this game, but not really finding an opener until the 55th minute. In the beginning of the second half, Vinícius Júnior gets the ball on the left flank, cuts back inside, one touch, two touch, sends a missile in the corner of the goal, the opposite corner of the goal. And, cracker of a goal, absolute cracker of a goal, 1-0 for Real Madrid. At this point, Vinícius Júnior goes to celebrate next to the corner, the corner flag, does a little dance with the flag, little salsa, provocative or not, everyone can have their own opinion of it. Obviously, he's away from home, so he's in front of the Benfica fans, but he's celebrating a wonderful goal. And yeah, going back into the field, he actually gets a yellow card from the French referee Le Texier, who says this is excessive celebrating. And so he contests that. He goes into, full-on Vinícius Júnior mode. Oh, I'm so surprised. Why? What's going on? And ultimately, starts moving back towards his own side for kickoff. And at this point, you see Mbappe is about 2-3 meters away from him. Camavinga is also 2-3 meters from him. And what you see is the Benfica player that's next to him, Prestianni. You see him lift his jersey over his mouth like this. And then you see Vinícius going and starting to run off towards the referee and pointing at Prestianni. And even Mbappe does kind of a double take at this point. What Vinícius Júnior is saying is that at that point he was the victim of a racial abuse from Prestianni. So he does what he's supposed to do, which is alert the referee. The referee does what he's supposed to do, stops the game. The game stops for 10 minutes. There's a lot of chaos and we don't know what's going on and the stadium is not happy and so on and so forth. After 10 minutes, game resumes and ultimately goes to its end, and the scoreline, the game ends 1-0. This is it. After the game, we get a lot of different people talking. We get Mbappe going on a long interview in the journalist area of the stadium, essentially saying this has no place. I heard him. He called him a monkey, so mono in English. This has no place. He shouldn't be going to the Bernabeu and Jose Mourinho, who's the coach of Benfica, says, I heard the version of Vinícius Júnior, I heard the version of Prestianni. They're not the same version, so I don't know what to believe. we hear from Chouameni as well, who apparently talks with Prestianni after the incident, and Prestianni tells Chouameni, who's a Vini Junior teammate, so you can take that with a pinch of salt, but apparently tells Chouameni, no, I didn't. It wasn't a racist insult, but actually, like he says he insulted him in a way which is actually homophobic. So the defense is not really much better than the accusation. So we'll see. Supposedly, the two Real Madrid players who are next to the action, so Mbappe and Camavinga, would have heard it. Benfica is saying they were actually too far away to have been able to hear it. Okay. And, in terms of what happened on the pitch, for now, exactly how it's supposed to happen, which is you signal to the referee stops the game. If the racial abuse is coming from the supporters and the fans, there's an announcement in the stadium. At this point, if the insults have stopped, the game can resume. And in this case, the insults were coming from a player, so they had stopped, so the game can and did resume. If the insults do not end, then the game can be stopped and can be lost to the team who's responsible. So Le Texier did well. Supposedly, I imagine he would have wrote about the incident in his match report, and so it will likely be taken up by the disciplinary commission for UEFA, and they will have to decide who's right, who's wrong, what exactly happened, and what kind of sanction should happen. In theory, the player is risking at least I think it's a 10-match suspension for cases of racial insults. So 10-game suspension, it's a pretty long one. And I think there's a lot of voices, including myself, I'll be honest, who think like if there is clarity and it's confirmed that there was a racial insult used, it's got no place in football, and the punishment should be even stronger than this. And it's tough as it is. Ultimately, we keep saying no to racism in football, and racism has no place in football. At some point, the hammer must drop, and there must be serious consequences. And this is if this is true and this is confirmed, there must be severe consequences, and that's just the way it goes. So we'll see. And I think I want to talk a little bit as well about the environment and the bigger picture of it, because things like this happen, and I think on paper there is not a single person who's not saying no to racism and so on. But then things happen, and unfortunately, everyone kind of loses their heads and retreats to their own. The clubs that they support, the players that they support, their own opinions. And so you start hearing a lot of people saying like, oh yes, but like Vinícius must have provoked it, which even Vinícius and Mbappe don't deny. And Vinícius can be a very provocative player, both in the way he plays, in the way he talks, and also like in this case in his celebration and so on. So people say that. People say like, why is it always Vinícius? Because there's so many black players in football, there's so many games and so on, yet like the only one who's time after time the victim of racial abuse is Vinícius. I don't know how much of a fair point it is, but yeah. And I think on the other end, you also see, and I've heard it, and I think especially in France, like there's a lot of conversations around that, which is we keep indulging with Argentine players and the Argentine football culture under the pretense that somehow racist slurs and racist insults are part of the football culture in Argentina. And after the Qatar World Cup, if you remember, like there was a video of Argentine players celebrating, singing a song saying like the French players weren't French because they're black, and their parents come from different African countries and so on. And yeah, time and time again, there's stories Copa Libertadores games, of Argentine players, national team. Like, yeah, there's a lot of controversies there, and which, never really gets curbed, if I'm honest. Like, there's never really been any sort of consequences, at least as far as I know. So that's where we are right now. And I'll be honest, like, yeah, I think like it's time to draw a line, and it's time to, if we say like no to racism, and there should be no racism in football, and there should be no racism in football, because like ultimately, and there's also like, that's the last thing I've heard people say, like, oh, but what's the difference between just trash talking a player, and trash talking happens all the time in football, and so like, why should we draw a line somewhere on what people should be saying? The reason is the kids, and the reason is that like kids watch football, for better or for worse. That's where a lot of kids get a lot of their value. And if you signal that racial insults are on the same level as trash talk, then like they will pick it on, and then the question mark will not be yes or no to racism. The question mark will be like, where is racism acceptable? And if it is acceptable on the football pitch, why is it not acceptable on the street and in the school and in the workplace? And I think, that's how we start reversing progress that's been made. And honestly, like, in my eyes, just like a better way of living together in society. And so, yeah, like, I know there is trash talk all the time. I know like people talk and insult each other and banter on the pitch, and we've seen it a few weeks back with Dembele during the Marseille game. But there are some topics where we must draw a line. There's a line in the sand. And yes, even if Vinícius was trash talking Prestianni, even if he's doing excessive celebrations and so on, you do not answer with a racial insult. Just, you do not. And so there's got to be clear consequences. The process must come to its end. And, if there's no consequences, ultimately, like, the whole ecosystem looks like idiots, one more time, in saying something, but then not backing it up. And then the reality is that the more like stupid fans will get emboldened to continue shouting whatever starts in their head, which really shouldn't happen. And yeah, like, ultimately, like, it will be every man for himself. Personally, I do not want, next year, next game, 3 years from now, Real Madrid team to have to walk out of a game and stop a game because like something happened and it cannot be punished, which they'd be fairly like entitled to and fairly in their right to do. And I think, coming from a PSG fan as well, and I think like that's why it's also a little bit close to my heart, is that PSG obviously suffered for years and years and years in the 90s and the early 2000s of really like systemic racism problems within our stadium and within our fans. It's well established. I'm not going to go into that right now, but if you want the history, it's readily available. It leads to fights between supporters. It leads to our own players being insulted by our own fans. So it led to crazy, crazy situations that should never see light of day anywhere, and even less in the context of a football game. And now we're in a place where, our stands have been cleaned up of these sorts of practices, never 100%, and never like there's always going to be like, an idiot or two here and there, but largely cleaned up, and the club and the fans are doing their work day after day and match after match of really living it up. And, like, just in parentheses, but one of the only two clubs who have ever stopped a football match because they've heard racial insults is PSG. We're one of only two clubs in the world who have actually done that. So I think like, we are at the forefront of this. We have supporters who've made like tifos, saying no to racism, supporting Palestinians, supporting peace in different conflicts. And so, it is close to our DNA now. And it is the value of football, and it is like the value. So then, like, there should be consequences. We'll see how this keeps evolving. But yeah, like, that's the way it goes. And no, Vinícius Júnior being provocative is not an excuse. No, trash talk and racism aren't the same. No, like, we shouldn't allow like this sort of behavior anywhere near a football pitch. So, whatever people say, no, I'm sorry, line in the sand. So anyway, this was what I had for you guys. Somewhat serious topic today, but I think it had to be said. And sadly, like, it will be said as soon, as often as is necessary until, like, this sort of thing doesn't happen anymore. And, hopefully UEFA will be in a position to tell us what is true and what is not. They will investigate. They will, like, check on both sides, and then we'll see the reality of it. In any case, yeah, this is what I had for you guys today. Like I said up front, like, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Really massively helps, and most videos are really, like, a lot funnier and more entertaining than this. And if you've made it this far, please drop a like on this video, especially this one on an important topic. Let me know in the comment what you make of it. And can we hope to ever see these sort of things not happen anymore? What's your position on it, and what do you think, if this is confirmed, what do you think the punishment should be? So anyway, this is what I had for you guys. I'll end it here. As always, ici c'est Paris!